All right. So before we get started, I would love for everyone just to briefly say who they are, and what maybe which county district, council district you're from, and then also what do you think is the best thing that our kids are experiencing these days? And we always want to talk about the negative, but just if you're a young person, you can talk about from your perspective. If you're an older adult, you can talk about what do you think is the best thing that our kids are experiencing? Where are our strengths? So just do it quickly. I will start. So I'm Carrie Wade. I'm the Community Partnerships Manager for Best Starts for Kids. I don't live in King County. I live about 1,000 feet away from King County in Northeast Tacoma. I literally could walk to King County in less than 5 minutes. So I'm just on the fringe there. But I think the number one thing that our kids are experiencing is I think technology, whether it can be a negative thing, I actually think it's really awesome. And I think the way that our kids are finding how to take advantage of technology to connect with people around the world, I think it's really, really cool. Just the ability to see our world much smaller than any of us would have imagined when I was growing up, to see things and experience them differently when you can't actually be there. And as a poor kid, I would have loved to have seen the things that kids see today, but this is something I like. All right, I'm going to pass it on to Eric because I hear a lot from Eric, and so I want to hear from Eric. Oh, by the way, I'm she, her pronouns, and my access needs are met today. So thank you.
My name's Eric. I use he, him pronouns. I'm in District 2. And something I've been thinking a lot about is just connection and community and feeling of disconnected, loneliness, isolation. And so that's something that's been on my mind.
Thanks, Eric.
Yeah. Well, should I pass along or?
No, I'll call out Megan. You want to go next?
Sure. Thank you. I'm Megan Walsh, she, her pronouns. My needs are also met. I I love this flip. It took me a minute. I was like, oh gosh, something great that's happening. I think maybe a world perspective that I think our kids are getting more access to a world perspective, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, you said it better than I did. That's kind of where I was going with the use of technology to have more of a role because they can see it too. They can see it. They can see what other people are saying. That's not always true, but they still
hear
can.
it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Yeah, definitely can bring unity or other things. Danielle, do you want to go next?
Hi, everyone. Danielle here. She, they pronouns. My needs are met. My video will be off. I am outside of my son's Taekwondo class. And King County, District 2. And I think that what I've seen with my child and their peers is within like the greater access and amount of technology and media news, just awareness. I think that they have shown so much greater ownership, understanding, and advocacy towards justice, towards equity, to just like a different ethical compass that I've just seen as a generation, which I think is very hopeful.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. All right. Let's see. Let's go to Antonietta.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah. So Antoinette or Antonietta, if you want to try some Italian. I go with by she, her. And I'm in District 5. I'm in my car right now because my son's at baseball practice. So, but one of the things that I absolutely love seeing is the different community partnerships that our students have access to. So I've seen some really great partnerships with Family First Community Center and different partners they have aligned with to provide for services to families and children. So
Great, thank you. All right, and then I think Jasmine, are you on there? Is there a Jasmine in the house?
Yeah. My name is Jasmine. I'm part of the zip code 98118. And my pronouns are she, her. And I think I'm the oldest sibling, so all my siblings are younger than me. And what I really love to see in them is the tech savvy side of them. Like my sibling, like my youngest sister is this is kind of bad, but she's a year old and she knows how to navigate like an iPad like all by herself. But then I think another better thing that I see is being really focused on kids' well-being nowadays compared to at least when I was younger. So I think that's also part that's a very I'm very glad to see.
That's awesome. Great. Thank you. All right, small and mighty group. Let's get started. So I just sent over an agenda at the last minute. And let's see, where did the agenda go? So yeah, I get all fancy. And by the way, I copied that from one from like 6 years ago. And I'm like, there's probably an error in there somewhere. So you'd be like, wow, it's not 20, it's not 2020. Let me take a look at that. This is what happens when you do that to I can do it off the top of my head, but I wanted to make sure I was following along so you didn't think I was totally flaky. So basically we want to talk about, I know we want to go over the application process. We want to talk about expectations, serving on the board, what there are expectations. I'm getting even tighter and tighter and tighter with the expectations, which is really scaring people because I don't play. And I want to make sure that this board, that we are the right fit for you and that you are the right fit for us. So we don't have a lot of high turnover. And so we really I come in really hard in these information sessions. We come in a little lighter during your interviews, but we really do want to kind of get all of that out and kind of tell you what the expectations are, share a little history of the board, and then definitely spend a lot of time answering your questions. I don't know if any of our co-chairs are going to be able to join us today. Sometimes they are able to pop in just for a few minutes to say hello. It's great when they can do that because then you can ask them their perspective as a board member. I think both of the co-chairs are a little irritated with me right now. So I'd be surprised if they didn't show up. I can be hard on the co-chairs too. So my main role for King County, it's changing a little bit. We just changed my job classification, but I was hired to staff the King County Children and Youth Advisory Board. I was the first person hired on BSK pretty much out of the program management team. And that was way back in 2017, February. And so the other 50% of my work is pretty much doing what I want, but more importantly, how do we connect best starts for kids to the community on all different levels, using different strategies and methodologies. So that's what I do, which means I host summits and I host road shows, and we just wrapped a bus. Did anybody see the Best Starts for Kids bus? Yes, that was one of my projects and we were so proud of it. I'll show you a video later. So those are the kind of things that I do. And but the main part of my job is consistently and will continue to be the staff, the Children Youth Advisory Board. And it is an honor to do that. So a little bit of history on the Children Youth Advisory Board is the King County Children Youth Advisory Board came into existence in 2016. They started talking about it in 2015 before the levy was passed, but 2016 was when it was formally formed. The board can go up to 40 people. We like to keep it in the low 30s because 40 gets a little bit tough to manage, literally, and it doesn't even make sense at some point. People get lost in the shuffle. They're mandated, the Children Youth Advisory Board is mandated to provide advice and some oversight for the Best Starts for Kids, for the Puget Sound Taxpayer Accountability Account, which we call PASTA. and for the Youth Action Plan, which is the King County Youth Action Plan, is the number one thing that the board is responsible for. In addition to that, providing advice to the executive, the council, the King County Council, and the staff of King County on pretty much anything related to children and youth and young adults in King County. I keep saying in King County because I try to keep the board to keep their scope a little bit smart and a little bit small to really focus on King County. That doesn't mean that there aren't other issues happening in the world that impact kids in King County. So sometimes the board will dabble a little bit on policies around state level issues and local issues as well that are impacting young people or just general policy. So there's a range of things that the board touches on. I think the King County Children and Youth Advisory Board is one of the, potentially could be one of the most powerful appointed boards in the county. This particular board is appointed by the executive and confirmed by the council. You'll find other boards where council members will actually put forth their people and their council appointed. This board is not. The council members can send me a name of a person. That's really up to the staff that our staff at BSK and the executive's office, and whether or not we're going to put somebody forward for appointment. So there is an application process. Some of you have already turned your applications in. Thank you for doing that. There's 3 pieces that you need to submit. One is the actual application, which is done on Google Forms. Shame on me. I need to get it off of Google Form, but I'm addicted. And then also there's 2 other pieces, the King County Code of Conduct and the King County Statement of Financial Interest or Disclosure. So those 3 things have to be turned into me for your application to be complete. And the application are due on March 31st during this round. So those are 3 things. If you have questions about those, let me know. Usually I'll look over them at the last minute and be like, oh, this isn't right, or you didn't sign it. Make sure you do at least electronic signature, if not an actual signature. If you have a trouble with that, you can send me your document. I'll save it in a PDF and then send it back to you through Adobe for electronic signature that way. So those are the 3 documents that you will need to have in. You will also have an interview, most likely with an existing board member, probably a member of our executive team. And they will have it's a pretty easy interview. They're just going to ask you questions about why you chose to serve on this board. What is a focus or a passion of yours? And it's just pretty simple, but they are going to be assessing you for a few things. So it's not that simple. I know you're like, we're volunteers and we're applying, we should get in. Doesn't work that way. We also have to have a balance of applicants on the board. Quite a few of you are from District 2, and that's challenging because they have been telling me no more District 2s. We did have a couple people, I think, in District 2 leave recently. In fact, one of our members actually passed away her last week on the board, which is really devastating. She was from 2, so we do have a little bit of wiggle room in 2, but unless you're a young person, District 2 is a little tough. District 2 is really tough. But if you're in any other district, you're probably okay. So I just like to, you'll notice from me that I'm very straightforward and can be a little frank. People often think I'm from, Ariana's coming in. Our co-chair is joining us. People actually think I'm from New York because I can be really straightforward. So that is, so you'll have so your application will come in, you will have a interview, and then we will score your interviews, look at everything, and deliberate. I've rarely had a person who's been asked or been told they aren't going to be able to join, and that's okay. There's other times that you can apply. There are reasons, sometimes politically, that we are told that a person can't be on the board, and we just have to kind of go along with that because there's bigger things at work. And so I think our last application, we actually had a person who maybe had been dismissed from some other boards in King County and in the city of Seattle. And I got a phone call like, you got to get that person off. So things happen. None of you are going to be that person, but just know it's not necessarily a shoe in. So that's really important. This is a volunteer position. You cannot be compensated unless you are a young person. And we'll talk about that in a second. You actually cannot be compensated in any way for serving on the CYAB. We compensate you in weird ways. You get a meal when we have in-person meetings, which is about once a quarter. you know, occasionally I'll sneak a mug in there, but we actually cannot compensate you monetarily. Unless you are one of our youth members of the board. Those are members that are 24 years of age or younger. The young people are compensated for a couple of reasons. While I don't believe in paying volunteers, it's actually against my values, personal values. I do believe that young people are the subject matter experts when we're talking about children and youth, and therefore they should be compensated for their experiential knowledge that they have. Those of us serving children and youth, it's a little bit different than actually being a young person. Because if you've ever been on a board and served with young people, you know that the first thing the older adults do is say, "So, young people," and it's just constantly taking from it. It's like, you know, if I served on a board and someone looked at me as a black, "So, for Black people, how do you feel about that?" And it's just not a really great position to be in. And while people are willing to give of themselves, we definitely want to recognize our young people who come on this board in lieu of maybe even working on a job. So our young people are compensated about $145 a month, and that's whether they go to one meeting or 5. So that is a value that this board holds, and that was determined by the members of the board. They're the ones that wanted that, and we had to have that legislated because it originally was not. So we had to change the legislation. When Best Starts for Kids was renewed, we actually changed our governance legislation. So that is that. I'm gonna take a pause here briefly because Ariana has joined us, our co-chair. Councilmember Ariana Sherlock from the city of Newcastle is in the house. Ariana, do you want to say hello to our prospects and kind of share a little bit before I jump into more in-depth conversation about the CYAB?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Ariana Sherlock. Sorry, I was a little late. My son has a sprained ankle, so everything takes longer around our house right now. But yeah, thanks for applying. I'm not sure. I don't know what I missed. I guess I'll just say I've been on the board for, I want to say 4 years. Sounds right. And I've been the co-chair for almost a year, and this board is really it's really dear to my heart. I think everybody on the board is really wonderful and bring a lot of really awesome experience and perspectives to make sure that we're advising the county to keep young people in mind and do right by them, and families as well. So it's just a great group of people, and we we're limited in what we can do. We're an advisory board, so we don't make a lot of decisions, but we recommend things to the county executive and the county council, and we have a lot of fun. So I don't know if that's good, Carrie.
That's great.
Okay.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that's wonderful. I think are you going to be on for the rest of the time, or are you going to need
Yeah,
to
I
hop
can
off?
stay on for the rest. I just
Okay, because I'm going to come around to some things that you have really been asking us to do, and how that's shifting the board and how we do our work.
Cool.
Thank you, Ariana. Okay, you'll have opportunities to ask Ariana questions. We don't want to take the whole time listening to me talk. We want to give you guys opportunity to ask what questions you want to ask. So the Children and Youth Advisory Board meets once a month on average. I think you meet about 11 times a year. I would say 10 because we usually take off August. No, it's 11 or 12 actually. So there have been some months where we have a special meeting. So there'll be 2 meetings, and then there are months that we take off. Usually August, because the King County Council takes August off. Usually August, we don't have a board meeting. And in December, it tends to be a very, very short board meeting followed by a lot of fun. But there are times where we need to have an additional board meeting a month, which is really rare, but it does happen on average about once a year. A couple of those meetings, at least one, is a retreat, and retreats tend to be about 4 to 4.5 hours long. And so those are going to be meetings where we're going to dig deep and do some extra work. Meetings are the second Tuesday of every month from 6 to 8:30. We try to make them from 6 to 8 because when we're virtual, 6 to 8:30 is a long time. Even when we're in person, 6 to 8:30 is a long time, especially with those of you who have to get home to your children or your doggies. So we do have 2.5-hour meetings. They are facilitated by our co-chairs, currently Ariana and Charmaine Jones. And we do provide a light meal when we are in person. We are meeting in person quarterly right now. There is a temptation to come back every other month and every month. And the reason being is we have a lot of people who are off camera and not participating. And we also have a harder time connecting and building those working relationships when we are virtual. And so when we see that participation go down, the co-chairs and myself are really tempted to have us come in person, which does usually shrink our attendance down and our quorum gets a little skinny, but it does lead to a more productive work on the behalf of the board and stronger connections. And I miss that. I miss the board having that. Our quarterly meetings are always great. We always feed you. Even when we meet monthly, we feed you. So, and people have actually told me that they come for the food because it's so good. And so I already know who we're getting in June, Ariana. I already know where we're going in June for food. It's not going to be that great. It's just Chipotle, but Chipotle does an amazing spread though. They do a really good job. Anyways, so the board meets, we do have subcommittees of the boards. We're encouraging that the board do a lot of their work on the subcommittee level now. It used to not be that way. We have 4 subcommittees. One is youth justice, one's community engagement, PASTA, which I talked about earlier, the Puget Sound Taxpayer Accountability Account, which is a fund that's funded by Sound Transit 3 levy. It takes money from the Sound Transit projects and puts it towards youth-related endeavors in King, Pierce, Snohomish County. And so PASTA is what we call it in King County. It's terrible acronyms, like the worst. And that's one of our subcommittees that was legislated. And then also our young leaders, which is our members of the board that are 29 years of age and younger. And so those are our 4 subcommittees. And the subcommittees also meet on average about once a month. And in addition to the subcommittees, we have executive committee and our co-chairs that meet. Oh, there's Ariana's kitty. Oh, I love the kitty. So, so that is the basic structure of the board. I could go in deep. I'm going to save some for the orientation because if you get on the board, you'll hear a lot more in orientation. I would say this, and I'd like to put this up front just because I get a little bit of a smacked hand a little bit, I think, because I'm pretty hard. So I take volunteering very seriously personally, and some of those personal values do spill over into the board. And sometimes we don't always agree about how that works. Ariana will tell you, I can go head to head with some folks. My thing is, if you are going to be on this board, then you are committing to do this work as if you would do the work that you get paid to do. It is a commitment. And that means that you show up, that you adhere to the King County Code of Conduct, which does require that you attend a certain amount of meetings a year, that you come prepared, and that you participate. And we know that things happen. Things always happen, and plenty of board members that have things happen. And we're not like, oh, shame on you, didn't show up, don't ever come back. It's not like that. We're not like that. We're just saying that we want you to come in with the mindset that this is a commitment where the expectation is that you are here to do work and that you are here to take it very seriously. If that's not something that you feel that you can do, then this probably isn't going to be the right space for you. And like I said, there are always accommodations, especially for our young people. We actually have it in our bylaws. There's special accommodation for our young people, just because they're in school and there's other things like their parents have expectations of them. And so, and actually our young people are doing pretty good with their attendance. So, and our young people are taking over the board right now. We have 5 positions designated on the CYAB for young people. We can go as many as we want. Currently, we have 4 that are under 24. We'd like to have up to 10. And I think there's 6 that are applying this round. So I'm super excited. So cheers and kudos to the young people. And they're doing some amazing work right now. So we just get out of their way, and they are our full board members. They are not token, they're not quasi, they are full board members. They get the same respects and considerations, just a little extra accommodation given the status of being in school and college and so on and so forth. So, and travel. So we know sometimes in person they can't always make it if we have a young person that comes from PLU, you know, and she makes every meeting, by the way, in person, drives all the way from PLU up to where were we? We were in Beacon Hill this month, and she drove all the way. So it's there are people that are really, we have people that come from Vashon Island, we have people that come from all over the county. So somebody here said they were in District 3. We love our District 3 people. We know you got to travel. So, you know, hats off to our District 3 people, our District 9, FAR 9 people. And yeah, so I just want to just stress the commitment is a commitment. It is not always fun to be on the CYB. It is not always easy. Sometimes we feel like we're twiddling our thumbs and not really doing anything, or we don't know what it is that we do. And that's when Ariana comes into play, because Ariana is wonderful. She's a great board member. Ariana sits in one of our 2 designated positions from Sound Cities Association. We also have a designated position from the city of Bellevue and one from the city of Seattle. Those are specific to those organizations. The rest of the board members are at large. Basically, you represent yourself. You don't represent who you work for. That's part of who you are, but that's not who you represent. You don't represent your district. You don't represent your council member. You don't represent your school. You represent you. And with you comes those other things, but you're not representing anybody but you. So if your boss is telling you to serve on this board because they want you to uphold the policies of their organization, this isn't the right space for that. You are coming with your views, your values, and your opinions. And so we just want to make sure that that's clear. But Ariana is in kind of this weird space where SCA has some agenda. They don't tend to disagree with us too much, and we're really lucky to have her. But one of the things Ariana said to me when she wanted to be co-chair was this: you know, we got to take some action, because this board, we can sit around, look at each other. She's like, I am not going to be co-chair unless we have a way that we can take action and we can respond. This board has responded to some pretty big things over the past 9 years, some really, really big things, but it's not always consistent, and we don't have something structured. We have a couple things structured. So what has been changing, what we're working on now, which new and prospective members always want to know, is this year we're doing a series with FMS Global Strategies to talk about how to be an effective change agent and how to be an effective board member. And so Paula Sardinas, the principal over at FMS, has been coming and giving us trainings on how to do better, how to build relationships with electeds, how to give a pitch, how do you bring and express your values? How does that translate into action later on when you actually do want to get something done? We are also having council members from the King County Council come to the board meeting. We just had Council Member Dembowski. We're working with Council Member Barone to come next. We're asking them to come because part of your work as CYAB members is to advise the council. And if you don't know them, if they don't know you, if they don't care about you, don't think you exist, it's a waste of time, right? We've had the executive come in the past. We don't know who our next executive is going to be. We might have one appointed sooner rather than later, because Dow Constein finally officially announced that he's going to Sound Transit. He actually might be departing early. We just found out. And so we don't know for sure. So nobody go and say, hey, Dow, I heard you're leaving early. He sent out an email saying this Thursday they will make a decision and his staff will let everybody know what's going to happen. So please don't call him and say, Carrie Wade said you're leaving early, because he knows me and that would just irritate him. So we're taking action. We're looking forward. We're going to work with the board and ask the board to come up with, the council members have asked us to come up with a set of recommendations and priorities that this board wants the King County Council to address, or at least consider, as they're making policy decisions, budgetary decisions, and things that impact our young people. Cool things that have come out of the board recently. You may have heard. Who's heard of the King County Youth Bill of Rights? Anybody other than Ariana? Ooh, Ariana, put your hand down, girl, please. Well, the King County Youth Bill of Rights, this is something that was in the Youth Action Plan. It was recommendation 8 in the Youth Action Plan. And this board, the young people, the young leaders at their retreat said, we need to do a Youth Bill of Rights. And so they took that to the rest of the board. The board said yes. They came to me and they said, it's time to do a Youth Bill of Rights. We spent 5 years doing that. This is a product of board advising. So you will hear a lot from Best Starts for Kids. You will have opportunities to serve on review panels for Best Starts for Kids. If you are an organization that gets money from Best Starts for Kids, that's okay. Almost everybody on the board is an organization that gets money from Best Starts for Kids. There'll just be times you need to recuse yourself. So we just want people to bring their passions, their ideas. There's a lot of things because you're they call you quasi King County employees because you fall under a few, you don't get paid, but you fall under a few rules that employees have to adhere to, especially when it comes to ethics. But being a quasi King County employee, I totally lost my train of thought on that whole thing. It's okay. I was going somewhere with that. It'll come to me later. So this is a great opportunity. I rarely have people step off this board early. Most people serve 6 years you can serve up to 6 years. You actually can serve more than 6 years. But 6 is 2 terms, 2 3-year terms is traditional. Some people will come in the middle of a term that is an overlapping term because we did 4-year, 3-year, 2-year the first year. So if you come in an overlapping term, you can finish that term out and then serve an additional 6 years. So it just depends on when you come on. So those are just some of the basics. And I know there's a lot of things I didn't cover, but this board is going places. This board has the potential to have a lot of power. And it doesn't always step into that power. And that's what we're really working on now. How can the CYAB continue to step into the power that they have and exercise that power on the behalf of children and youth? And how can we do that in a way that is respects the equity statement of the CYAB and respects the guiding principles of the CYAB and keeps our kids at the forefront of the conversation? So I will pause there. We're going to open it up to your questions. This is really an information session, again, to make sure that you're the right fit, we're the right fit for you, and we're here to answer those questions for you. So, all right, I'm going to stop talking and let you guys talk.
I'm gonna unmute my mic just because I don't see a hand thing on my phone.
That's perfect.
Okay. So I have a few quick questions. One, I wasn't able to write down all of the subcommittees, the 4 subcommittees. Do you think, Carrie, that you can send me an email with those so that I can kind of like ruminate on them and kind of what they are? The other thing I was wondering was, I love the idea of in-person meetings. How much notice would we get if you guys decide, let's make this an in-person meeting? Like, is that planned out so that I know 6 months in advance type of thing, or, 2 months in advance?
2 months. I know the next one will be in June.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And then after that, September is usually, and then after that's usually December.
Okay, so because I know you mentioned that you guys were thinking more about having more in-person meetings, right? So I was wondering if we make the commitment, it matches. Will we get that ahead of time so that we can block that time out on our calendars? Do you know what I mean? And
yeah, for sure. We'll go back to pre-COVID practice, which is not my favorite. It would end up being hybrid only for people who for some reason couldn't make it that time, but we have policies that doesn't allow people to do that every month. So if something happens and we have it in person, you're like, I can't be in person, but I can phone in. We will make space for that. Oh, not for our quarterly meetings, but if we start going back monthly. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And then the other thing is location of these meetings. I know this probably sounds like really basic, but where do you guys meet? And does that shift?
It shifts. So we love Mercer Island, which is hilarious. We used to meet in Tukwila or Renton, and we would do 2 meetings in Renton or Tukwila, then 2 meetings in Bellevue, 2 meetings in Renton, Tukwila, 2 meetings in Bellevue. We really like Mercer Island Community Center. That's our favorite place to meet because it's very central. And it's a struggle for everybody, right? Except for Ariana. She's like, it's 5 minutes. Kidding. No, it's a struggle for everybody, but it's a really great meeting space. So we like meeting there. We just met at El Centro. Terrible parking there. Oh my God. We just met in North Beacon Hill at El Centro de la Raza. And then we just opened, and I don't think there's enough room for us to meet in Tukwila at our Tukwila office, but sometimes we'll meet somewhere in Tukwila. We met at Billy Baroo's for a retreat. We could try the Tukwila Community Center. So there are spaces, yeah, that we move around.
Okay, great. Yeah, that was my big questions, I guess. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. And the subcommittees can change with the exception of PASTA and the young leaders. So just FYI, I put them in the chat, but they are not standing. The only standing subcommittee is the Puget Sound Taxpayer Accountability Count and the young leaders. The others are ad hoc, technically. And all board members are assigned to one subcommittee. And we would strongly encourage that people attend. Right now, almost everybody goes to their subcommittee meetings. It's a thing.
The subcommittees in person or virtual?
Virtual.
Okay.
Yeah, they might have a retreat once a year.
Okay. Okay. I would love to hear from both of you what are kind of what's the most important focus that you think you've had in your time working on the board?
Ariana, you go first since you're a board member.
I mean, that's hard. I think everything we do is important. We've recently, we asked the executive to update the youth action plan because it had been 10 years. So that was a big important ask that that they took our recommendation and did. I mean, everything we do with BSK, Best Starts for Kids, is yeah, it's all important. It's just it's trying to find like the next thing. The youth action plan update is really a big one though, because that a lot can come out of that. So like you all can dive into that and really kind of find things and can spark ideas to come out of that.
Thank you.
I'm writing some stuff in the chat. So I would think that I think some of the things that really, I think what Ariana said, the youth action plan is the guiding, it's the guiding framework for the entire county when it comes to children and youth. So that's hugely important. And so that is probably the number one responsibility of the board. So teaming up with the staff to ask the executive to renew that was a big deal. And it's going before council here in the next month or two. So that should be exciting. I think the Youth Bill of Rights was huge. It's part of the youth action plan, but I mean, it was a big project. And I think that young people feel they're waiting to see what we're going to do with it. I know they're like, okay, let's see you operationalize this. But I think it's still a big deal to get that done. We have not had one in King County in the past. So I think that's really huge. So I think mostly though the youth justice work, we have a lot of people on the board that are prenatal to 5 folks, or prenatal to 8. And then we have people that are doing the older years that serve in those spaces. And so when I first came on the board, a lot of our work was around prenatal to 8 and really focused on those years. I'd say now we've shifted a lot to youth justice. There is still space for the early years. You know, there's a temptation to, not a temptation, but an interest in bringing a more of a focus on childcare now that BSK has taken that on and having some conversations more around that. So, but yeah, I think all the work is, I think Ariana's right. All the work is important. It's kind of like, what is it at the time? I always tell board members, when you're on the CYAB, you're never going to know what it is that you do, but you just do what's in front of you. So if you're like, what is it that we do? You're never going to really know. It's too big. Most government boards are sounding boards. They just come and say stuff to you and you look cute and you bat your eyelashes and give them a thumbs up. This board can actually make and shift policy, which is very different. So you're both a threat and an asset in King County because you can push. And so I think when I see the board pushing for policy changes and they actually have influence on things that the county's doing, I think that's huge.
Great. Thank you so much.
You bet. Other questions?
You kind of just spoke to this a bit. I was curious if you could share anything else around what the committees are currently up to or specific projects they're working on?
Yeah, I can do that. Ariana, you want me to do it?
Sure.
Okay. So we will start with the young leaders because they are on fire. So the young leaders, there's 5 of them, not 4. There's 1 that's in their late 20s and 4 that are under 24. 3 that are in high school. They are currently setting up appointments with youth councils and youth commissions around King County and youth leadership groups to tell them Youth Bill of Rights is done, it's here, yay. We also are forming a youth commission in King County as one of the recommendations that came out of the Youth Bill of Rights project. So they're actually interviewing these other councils and commissions and asking them, what do you think a King County Youth Commission should look like and how do you think it should operate? So they have taken on that project. They also work on board culture. It's really, really hard to be on this board, and it's really, really, really hard to be a young person on this board. It's not easy. And so there's a lot of jargon, and you've probably heard me say some jargon already. There's a lot. There's a learning curve. It usually takes about a year before you can settle in. So the young leaders started years ago hosting young leader coffees, and they're casual meetings where board members just come and play board games and hang out. And I might bring a photo booth and we just play board games and chill and have coffee and get to know each other as a way to build relationships on a different level. So those are 2 things that the young leaders are really focused on right now. They also are focused on recruiting and cultivating a larger young leader group within the board. So they're asking their friends to apply. I always recommend, Jasmine, I always recommend that people come with a friend because then you always have a buddy. Find one of your friends, say, you want to do this with me? Coming with a friend strengthens a person's commitment and bond to the work. The Youth Justice Subcommittee, that one's been floundering for years. We're looking for some strong people that have an interest in youth justice. They're doing some amazing stuff right now. Both of their co-chairs are, I think, stepping aside this month, though, which is really, really hard. One's taking a leave, and I think one's stepping aside. So they've struggled. They've struggled. They used to be on fire. They were working directly with our detention center, looking at the conditions that young people were experiencing within the detention center and putting really a lot of pressure on the executive and the council to make changes because kids were suffering. They weren't getting the services and the support that they needed while they're in temporary detention. And also the board supports, we have people that serve on the care and closure subcommittee or advisory subcommittee at the King County, and they are the ones that are looking at oversight on the closure and repurposing of the detention center, which has been put on hold. The timeline has been put on hold. This board has said we don't want that timeline put on hold. And so there's letter writing around that and just really keep putting pressure on the executive and the council to look at how we are addressing youth in detention and what that looks like. The community engagement subcommittee, they've really been talking about reach and influence. It's kind of a weird subcommittee because they kind of touch on everything. They have really been looking at how do we get word out about what the board is doing. We think it's important that people know what the board is doing, but also how do we hear from community? How do we talk about what Best Arts is doing? How do we talk in the community about the youth action plan? How do we have influence in spaces that we're already in? So, for example, we just had a videographer come to the last board meeting a couple weeks ago and video record people answering 1 to 4 questions that were crafted by the community engagement subcommittee. And we're hoping to make tailored videos for each individual and combined videos to go out so people know that the CYAB is out there and doing this work. The reason why we want to do that is we want to up your algorithm on social media because when something really important happens and we need people to step up, you will already have that audience there. So didn't we do the training called How to Become a $1 billion? Was it $1 billion social media influencer or was it $1 million? I think it was $1 billion. I made some stupid, we had a trainer come in and talk to people about how you can be effective on social media with not doing a whole lot of work. But this is a space where the board has determined they can have influence. It's too hard to go to every single farmer's market, right? You're only going to reach a small amount of people if you do that. But if you have an audience on social media, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, wherever it is that you are, and you just put up your board placard and say, yeah, great meeting tonight. That's all you got to do. People are like, oh, I didn't know you were on the CY, it's Children Youth Advisory Board. What do you guys do there? That's all you got to do. So we're teaching people, that's a skill that translates into other work too. So they're doing that. It's pretty cool. Who did I forget? Pasta. So Pasta has a mandate of what they work on. They have three different strategies within Pasta. I never can remember them. One's like early learning facilities. One is a something promise. Don't ask me to remember. Hannah Lore Makani runs that. I keep let's let her do her thing. They're more structured because they have legislated things that they have to work on, and so they just kind of monitor how the funding's being used, and how that's how people are addressing the things that King County has laid out for them to address with the funding. It's a very, very, very small funding. It's tiny compared to Best Starts. Best Starts is like $1 billion over, the years, and then Pasta's like, a few million. So very different. So those are the main things they're working on. Is that helpful? They can always use some fresh ideas. Pasta is definitely looking for more members. So if anybody's interested in serving in Pasta, they are looking for more members on Pasta. For sure. They're feeling a little skinny. I mean, you could join Pasta instead of the CYAB, but I'm not going to tell you that. The Pasta subcommittee actually is 50% or 50 plus majority, simple majority of Children Youth Advisory Board members, and then the rest are from the community, and they are not board members of the CYB. So it's very different. But we just would like to have our 8 people from the Children Youth Advisory Board on there. So
can I just add one thing?
Yeah.
Because Carrie did say like it does. I think you said it takes about a year to kind of settle in, which is true. But I'm gonna give you advice on how to maybe speed that up a little, and that's simply ask questions, because probably other people have the same question. There are no stupid questions like in our meetings, and so if you're just are brave and ask questions, you will figure it out a lot quicker. But it does take a little time, just because it's an advisory board. We don't, like I said, we don't legislate. We don't make decisions. We make decisions to recommend things. So it just takes a little bit of time, but it's a really fun group. We have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And it's just really good people too. So yeah, I enjoy it.
Yeah. People, the number one comment that people say is like, I get to be on board with these people. These people are amazing. I think people really like the connections that they make on the board, which is all the more reason why we should be in person more often. But because those connections are important. But you do make recommendations to people who are making decisions. There are places where the board, for example, the Best Starts for Kids in a implementation plan, the board has a pretty strong role in that, and had a pretty strong role in the youth action plan as well. So there, you that's where you have influence. There's definitely some opportunities to make some decisions there. I know that if you know anything about Best Starts, the school-based health centers, we took a couple board members to tour school-based health centers during Best Starts 1.0, and they're like, we need more funding that goes towards this. And then 2.0, the board said we need more funding to go to school-based health centers, and I think we doubled. So there is influence, just small and in between. And some months you'll be like, okay, that was a boring meeting. Another month you'll be like, that was the best meeting ever. Oh my God. Could have just kept going. So.
But it is a lot of information. I think that's what Carrie means, but it takes a while just because there's a lot of, it's government, right? So there's a lot of acronyms, there's a lot of jargon. But that's why I just say, don't be afraid to ask questions, because and then even board members like me that have been there for a long time, I'll forget. I'll be like, oh, we haven't heard from this group for a year. So actually, what exactly do we do again? So yeah, don't don't be afraid.
Yeah, I like it when board members. Now, Ariana will tell you, I'll be the first one to roll my eyes at you. And there are no stupid questions, just stupid looks on my face. I'll be like, really? I already told you no 1,000 times. Just you'll get used to me. I'm not for everybody. But I will say that I love it when board members come up and they get bold, even if it's something like, yeah, we can't do that. I'm the no girl who will find a way to make something happen. So if we can't do it, it doesn't mean we can't do it a different way. So if there's a way to do it, I will find a way. If there's not, I'll tell you we just can't. I'm not gonna lead you on. I'm not gonna make you feel good about yourself because you came up with the best idea since sliced bread, and you probably will. But I will be honest with you, and if there's a way to make it happen, we'll make it happen, and that's my job. So it's just ask the questions, push for things. The young leaders have been known to be pretty bold and have said, we're going to do this. I'm like, okay. I was like, all right, that's great. What do you need? What do you need to make that happen? So
Harry, I had a quick question. So I love that you guys are looking at recruiting larger groups of younger people to take part in things. Can you tell me the current like grade level or age range that you guys are, I understand the upper limits, but how young are we looking at? Middle school age possibilities or incorporating voice of like even like 5th grade students into the process?
We
no,
sometimes
16.
we do surveys for that young, but not on the board.
No,
Okay.
16.
So 16 years
Yeah.
old. And
Yeah,
then you guys
16.
do surveys of younger students then to bring that voice to the table.
Sometimes, yeah, when
Okay.
when it makes sense for what we're
Yeah.
working. Yeah.
Okay.
We had a 15-year-old once. It was very, very hard. It's not an easy space. 16 is already a stretch. Thank you, Danielle. Okay. Next, Danielle said she had to leave and check her kid out. All right. Anybody else have any questions? I know we're almost at time.
That's the question from Eric in terms of decision making. Yeah, I mean, it's simple majority, but
Consensus.
it's usually consensus. I mean, we usually are on the same page. We do a lot of discussing and talking, and most ideas get built in if they're not already there. So, yeah, I would say it's mostly consensus.
Yeah, we actually have a thing in our bylaws that says it's consensus, except for we do use Robert's rules when we want something on the record that it actually, so you can talk consensus and we're like, okay, we're going to do that. And the co-chairs are like, cool, moving forward. But if it's something really important, like the board has decided that we're all going to go on vacation to Disneyland, then we're going to actually have to take a vote and then have a roll call. Mostly it's just ayes, and then it's only a roll call if it's voting the co-chairs in usually, but we will just do ayes and nays, and then that way it's on the record. So not a lot of Robert's rules. They're a barrier for most people, so we try to keep it simple. Ariana's laughing. She's like, I know, Councilmember Robert's rules suck. Point of order. Other questions, you guys? It's 5:58. Did everybody get their application in? Eric, I know you've got your packet in. I don't know. I haven't looked today to see who all got their stuff in. I was going to. If you haven't already, you have until the 31st if you're still interested. And definitely reach out to me if you have any questions. Don't let the statement of financial interest scare you. Most of the questions are no, 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 no.
Yeah.
And you are filling it out in lieu of being appointed in 3 weeks, which won't take 3 weeks. It will take forever. It used to take about a month. I bet you it'll take. Ariana, do you want to put a wager on how long it'll take?
No, I have no idea.
Because it's been bad lately. It took us 8 months, 6 months for this group that would have applied this time last year. They didn't get appointed till December or something like that. It was terrible because we lost our boards and commission liaison. He retired after 30 years. So the new one has a dual role, and it took her forever to get up and going. And literally, we're still just getting some of the appointments that I asked for back in April. So it can take time. What we do encourage you all to do is attend the Children's Youth Advisory Board in April. It will be virtual. You will already have your application in, but this will be an opportunity for you to observe. You cannot talk during the meeting except for during open public comment time, but you can observe a meeting to kind of see how it goes. And we also we encourage you to check out subcommittees as well. We're happy to send you, if you're interested, send you a schedule for that. And, just hang in there. You can come to meetings and not participate for months and you're not held accountable for those months either. So it can take a long time. I hope it doesn't take that long, but it can. So it's unfortunate that there's just not the staff on that level, the executive
But we
level.
have our next April meeting will be there'll be a lot of information because we'll have the
Yeah. The evaluation group is coming. We might have a special guest, a lawyer that works with the advocacy organization, and then he just wants to talk for 5 minutes. And then we have David Beard is going to ask to come in. Ariana, I think you saw, he has agreed to help us with those 10 priorities and walk us through the first year. Yeah. Because I'm like, it wasn't a Paula's scope. And David, I said, but David, they asked about you. You want to do this? Oh my God, I'd love to do that. I'm like, good. Okay, cool. So we got that figured out. So he's like, I'm better at that than Paula anyways. Paula does this, I do this. I'm like, okay. So David Beard will start talking to the board about identifying and having those priorities come up from the subcommittee level to the board level, have the board, question people, have guests come in, tell them about those issues, and then come up with their final recommendations. All right. Where do you find meeting details and log in for the April meeting? I will add you all to the April meeting.
Hey, Karen, I think I checked the wrong box on my financial disclosure form. I didn't check the 3-week box. Should I
That's all right.
Okay.
They never. I'll fix it. No big deal. If it's within the 3 weeks, it doesn't matter. Just pick one, because it says you want to apply for which board. You say King County Children's Youth Advisory Board, and they're like, are you filling out this form as your annual reporting form or in lieu of or being appointed? So you probably picked the annual one.
I did, yeah.
And you can resend it if you want. No big deal. They don't really look at it.
Right.
They just want to make sure you're not going to steal, embezzle money or something. And you just have to disclose it. It doesn't even necessarily exclude you. People can be like, oh yeah, I have a direct contract. I get all this money. And they'll be like, okay, thanks for letting us know, because we need to know that before we appoint you. All right, it's 6:02. My dog is not wanting me to do something. She heard me say my dog though. Really? What do you want to do? You want to go walkies? No, she doesn't want to go anywhere. She doesn't feel good. All right, guys, thank you so much. We're here for you. Reach out to me or Ariana if you have any questions. We're happy to answer those questions for you. Thank you all for being here today.
Thank you so much.
All right. Enjoy the
Thank
rain.
you. Have a nice day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. Oh my God. Let me turn the recording off before we start running our mouths. Where the heck is the okay, stop recording.